Hello everybody and welcome back to QuipScope. It's the show where we look at a video game that has come out or is coming out very soon, but we have played early. My name is Peter.
And my name is Ben.
Hello Ben, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Peter?
I'm alright. How are you in relation to the fact that you've been playing Marvel's Avengers?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. We should clarify immediately that this code was provided by Square Enix, so thank you very much to Square Enix for that. We have been rather outspoken across our coverage of the beta and, you know, all of the horror story news articles coming out about the nature of how it was working and exclusive characters and the live service elements, and everyone seemed, there's let's just say that this had a bit of a bumpy road PR-wise leading up to the launch. It of course comes out on Friday. I spent 5 hours with it last night.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you all about it.
Okay. First and foremost, have you had any revelations in having 5 hours with it where you either realise it's really as bad or worse than some of the negative PR has said, or on the flip side, have you spent time with it and now thought, actually, this is a bit more of kind of what we wanted than we've been led to believe by the coverage so far?
I am thrilled to announce that I have upgraded my stance on this game from, oh my goodness, what have they done? This is irredeemable, to cautiously optimistic.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So, obviously it starts off with that demo that everyone's played 12 million times now in San Francisco on A-Day. But it adds more to it, because obviously, the demos and the betas, they didn't want to have everything there. But yeah, I'll try and include some footage from moments that I wouldn't consider spoilers necessarily. Right. But essentially, it's far more linear than I was expecting. The first 3 hours or so there's none of that, the side stuff nonsense that we were worried about with all the, the strike teams and going into missions with voiceover but no actual cutscenes or anything to go up levels and get gear and stuff like that. The first few hours are very sort of, they're quite fast paced, they're very story heavy, there's lots of cinematics, and I was thinking, oh my god, this might actually just be the game. This is amazing, because when you're on the main menu there's an option of, I think, campaign and multiplayer. There's two options.
Okay.
It does describe the multiplayer as endgame stuff that you do after you finish the campaign. But when I was a few hours in and I still hadn't come across any of these, the Strike Force side missions that I played in the beta that are just sort of uninspired, go to objectives on the map kind of deal, I thought, oh, maybe they were just piling all that stuff into the beta just to demonstrate what the multiplayer would be like, and they'd steer well clear of it, and the campaign is just the campaign. But it is there. It's definitely there. Those missions are there. You get to the war table when you get to sort of your central Avengers hub, as I spoke about on our podcast when I played the beta, and it shows all the side stuff you can do. It's all optional. You don't have to do it, and if you do it, it is multiplayer supporting. What's the term I'm looking for? You can play it in co-op, basically.
Sure. Right.
And you can invite friends in and all play as a hero of your choice, and then that hero levels up and stuff. And I think the levels are the same as when you play through them in the campaign, because you do level up in the campaign. When you're playing as the different heroes. The difference being, that in the campaign, the missions are bespoke to whoever you're meant to play as. So when you're playing these multiplayer missions, they are, by definition, far more generic, because they have to support the Hulk also being able to go through this door, and so on and so forth. So that's, I think, part of my problem with those missions is they do just feel a little less unique and focused, because it is just a sort of an uninspired sandbox, as I said, with objectives. Go fight. There's a loot chest nearby. There's a high-level squad nearby. Take them out for some rare gear. And it's like, oh, Christ, okay. So I've now reached a point in the story, and I will give an overview of what the story is in a second. But I've reached a point in the campaign now where I do have those side things opened up to me, and I can do them if I want. They do have sort of suggested levels to them based on your gear and stuff. And again, we'll get into gear in a minute. Bloody hell. But they are there, and they are optional. You don't have to do them. And there was one that I was forced to do, but that very much felt like sort of the campaign introducing me to them as a concept. So you know how games sort of make you experience all of the game before then letting you run loose on the rest of the campaign. Just like how Spider-Man had several missions where you just collected a backpack, for example, or just it introduced you to the side stuff. So I'm hoping those doesn't repeat itself throughout the story, because those are they're very much a distraction from the campaign, I found. There's when you're in sort of the lobby, if you will, in the back of the Quinjet on the way to the mission, which very much looks like Destiny, and there's a lobby and you can see people's names if you're playing with other people. Yeah. When there's voiceover in there, especially story voiceover, because obviously this was a story mission, even though it was just introducing me to them, the characters, their mouths weren't moving, even though they were talking. It just feels like side stuff. Right. Which is just so tonally different from the campaign stuff. So if the campaign continues as just story mission after story mission, that's great. I'm all about that, because I like the concept. I like Kamala Khan, who obviously is the Avengers superfan, who goes to A-Day at the start and then contracts some illness which gives her superpowers, and it appears that maybe the Avengers were set up and you're setting out to try and bring the Avengers back together as well as join them, but you get to play as all the Avengers in different missions. And I like the core concept, and I'm interested in that, and I want to play more. But I was kind of disappointed that the multiplayer stuff is sort of shoehorned in there too.
Yeah, I can understand that, but that leads me on, when you say you get to play as all the Avengers, that leads me on to my next question, which is, do you have a favourite so far? Do you have just someone who you love playing over all the others, or not quite? I have played as... You play as all of them in the first mission, obviously, in the San Francisco mission. In terms of what I've played throughout the rest of the campaign, I've played as Hulk, Iron Man, and Kamala so far. Yeah. And I think probably Hulk is my favourite. I find Iron Man a bit difficult to use because he's sort of... You get the sense that he should be a ranged combatant, but his ranged attacks don't feel that powerful, and he can be a bit dodgy to aim and shoot with sometimes. You sort of want to fly around and shoot people with ease, but there's no... You feel like there should be some sort of automatic lock-on missile that you can hold down a button, it'll fire at enemies, but you can't do that. You sort of have to hover and aim at people and shoot, or fly and then accurately shoot while you're flying, which can be a bit of a challenge. So I'd say the Hulk is my favourite so far, and it does feel suitably chaotic when you're playing as the Hulk, especially going through laboratories and stuff, and there's glass smashing and you're blowing stuff up. Like, this game fundamentally is good. I just think they've massively overcomplicated it with all the loot, with all the currencies. So talking about the currencies, there are 9 resources in this game. Yep. And you get these resources from breaking down bits of gear you don't want, or by picking them up in the environment, like we talked about on the podcast. Hey, the Hulk has an animation for opening loot chests. Who would have thought that would ever be necessary? But it is. And of course, there is a premium currency as well that you can spend on unlocking cosmetics, which you can earn in-game by completing challenges. However, there are, drumroll, various packs of premium currency you can buy, the most expensive of which is £85. Oh, goodness me. But hey, Ben, I'm sure it's probably the best value. Well, it might not even be that. Sometimes they all just cost exactly the same relative to each other. But do you want to spend £80 on a pack? No, not really at all. As I said, you can earn this currency in game, but it's very clear again that part of the PR problem here is that they were just sort of desperate to monetize this straight from the start. Even though all the subsequent heroes are apparently going to be free, I just feel like the gear, the sort of the loot levels and tiers, all the resources and the currencies and the multiplayer stuff with the strike teams and things, it's so unnecessary, all of it. It could have quite easily been just what I experienced in the first 3 hours, which is just this linear third-person action campaign
with all your favourite superheroes on an interesting, superhero journey adventure story.
It's frustrating because I think almost everyone who's interested in Marvel or superhero games or both would have, if you just did a survey, people would have said, yeah, that sounds great. But I do understand why they didn't then go for that, the thing that probably loads and loads of people would have enjoyed. It's because it doesn't make as much money, which is, it's a shame that clearly just leads these creative decisions to such an extent nowadays.
Yeah, I think it will still sell very well, but it has been proven, by Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order and stuff, that these games don't need to be packed full of this stuff.
Yeah.
And as a result, I wouldn't be surprised if it has impacted the sales. They really have. As we said at the start, they've had a PR nightmare leading up to this game coming out, and it's entirely because they didn't keep it simple. They didn't make it just a single-player, third-person action game. And I'm okay with the multiplayer stuff. I'm going to play some of it this evening with a friend, and I'm looking forward to it, especially if the levels sort of carry over from your single-player to your multiplayer game. That's presumably the appeal. But I still can't help but feel that everything that goes hand in hand with that, with the loot levels and the grinding out of the gear and going to these same maps over and over again to complete different objectives, it just feels like Marvel's Destiny rather than Marvel's Avengers. And I don't know that that's what everybody wants. But as I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. If the rest of the story can maintain its pace, I think the voice cast is very good. Obviously, Nolan North was an excellent choice as Tony Stark.
Yes.
I was always looking forward to the narrative, the single-player narrative of this game, and it appears currently, unless it continues to force me to do the occasional multiplayer mission on my own with no, lip sync, it appears that I will be allowed to experience that without anything getting in my way, which is nice. And I am looking forward to playing more, but that is where I currently stand 5 hours into the game.
Man, it's a shame. You talk about Fallen Order as well as an example of where it was sort of done right, apart from some of the actual technical aspects of that game. And it kind of reminds me. It's something we've talked about on the podcast recently over several weeks now, about sort of the way that developers or publishers kind of aren't. Sometimes they don't temper expectations properly, either because they spend a long time developing a game after announcing it years in advance, or they deliberately try and make a game look like something it's not in the hopes of exciting people. But it's like, well, if you know that false narrative excites people, why didn't you just make a game like that in the first place? Why try and sell something in a way that isn't actually what it is? And the reason I go back to you mentioning Star Wars is because it's like Battlefront 2, That was a game where they said, people want a campaign, people don't want loot boxes, so what we'll do is tell people there's a campaign and basically no loot boxes or in-game currency. I can't remember exactly what they said there was and wasn't, but and then when the game came out, it turned out the campaign was a bit light in terms of like interesting mechanics and narrative, and the game was pretty heavy on in-game currency. And just at least tell us what you're actually going to do ahead of time. Be honest,
Yeah.
And then you won't then you won't have the PR nightmare as much as you would do in leading people slightly astray, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Things definitely could have gone better for them. I hope that, as I said, I hope it continues the way it started, because I am enjoying it so far. I'll be interested to see how long this campaign goes on, and if they do, worst case scenario, if they do pad it out by forcing you to do several of these, multiplayer missions, because the one it forced me to do was counted as a story mission, and I was there with a story purpose, but everything in it felt really generic. Go stand in this circle while Jarvis disables the security service or whatever, and you have to fight people while standing in a circle. Then you go in there, you get a little cinematic, and then you have to fight a couple of mini bosses. They've all got health bars over their heads and levels, and it's just like, oh man, yeah, it is a shame, because I've had one proper boss fight so far, and it was great, really good.
Yeah.
And I just hope there's less of that and more of the campaign stuff that people actually want. But we'll see. We will see. I'm streaming it on Friday over on our Twitch channel for a couple of hours, probably the first 2 hours. But if people are interested, they can come and watch that.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how it goes once it's properly been released and what people think of it. But in the meantime, obviously, stay tuned for more QuipScopes where we look at new games. There's plenty of new games coming out in the next couple of months, actually. It's exciting. But hey, Marvel's Avengers, more like Marvel's a Venn diagram in the sense that there's like a sort of single-player linear campaign bubble and also a big multiplayer in-game currency heavy bubble, and then those two bubbles are in the middle, and in the middle of that Venn diagram is this game.
That is the most accurate and apt quip I think we've ever done, so I'm not even going to attempt to follow that up. That was fantastic. Well done.
Thanks. I really liked the bit where I explained it for about a minute and a half.
No, but I thought that was really helpful because I've got Avengers brain, and so I just really like microtransactions, and so I need it explained to me.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks. Well, I guess we'll end it there then if you're not gonna.
Yeah. No, I'm done. I'm out.
Sure. Right. Screw it.
Bye, everyone.
I don't care that you break your elbow. Bye, everyone.